Hi everyone, this is Jailene, and you are watching Mojo Reading Revealed. This episode is part of the 5 Gears of Mojo Reading series, and 5 Gears of Mojo Reading is the methodology that Podler uses to read humans. So, quick recap of the 5 gears. They go from the more concrete, more component, so elemental level, to the more broad, more tacit, more intuitive, so it's a spectrum. The Gear 1 deals with the components, or the 8 pod powers, and how you can spot those physiologically. The Gear 2 deals with the broader energy fields that are created with the combination of 2 pod powers, and how you can read those physiologically as well. The Gear 3 deals with the totality of the patterns, the configuration of cues that a person gives off, and their distinct signals. Then the Gear 4 deals with the riffs, or the variations within a certain mojo configuration, depending on how they've developed. Then Gear 5 deals with the self-awareness and mastery of your own apparatus, because after all, your apparatus is what's reading everything out there, and how to get yourself into the ideal state of reading, which is that of quasi-state. In this episode, we're delving into Gear 3. And Gear 3, as I mentioned, it deals with the totality, with the whole picture of the energetic patterns that a person gives off. And that comes in the form, what we're looking at are the configuration of cues that the person gives off, and also the distinct signals because of their source power. That means that at this point you're taking in the patterns corresponding to the 4 conscious powers and the priority they address. Because of that, you can see the ratios and relationships between those powers. Gear 3 is then dealing with the big picture, with all of the patterns that a person is giving off. So it's at the 3rd gear point where you can really start to be able to make a read on a person's possible mojo. Because of this, 3rd gear allows you to identify a person as one of the possible 16 mojo configurations. This is done by referencing the unique design signals in several ways. It allows you to see the distinct signal that comes from a mojo that has the same source power. So the V amped signal, the Vi concern, the Z bracing, the Xi inflappable, the Xi poignant, the Ji caring, the Ni buoyancy, the Ni dissatisfaction. In addition, it allows you to see the distinct signal that comes from the specific mojo configuration. So the distinct signals that are specific to Xi Ni, the Xi Ni, the Xi Vi, the Xi Vi, the Ni Xi, the Vi Xi, the Vi Xi, the Ni Xi, the Ni Zi, the Vi Zi, the Ni Ji, the Vi Ji, the Ji Vi, the Ji Ni, and the Zi Ni, and the Zi Vi. Because you can identify the signals that are coming from a specific mojo configuration, you can then see the commonalities between signals of mojos that are in the same social alchemy grouping. So, for example, the source song, the mojos that are inverse mojos, and that means that you can start using the social alchemy in 3rd gear. 3rd gear allows you to observe and identify a person's mojo configuration, which is not typing. You're reading much like you would be doing a work of art, and because of that, because you're approaching it with an artistic eye, you're honoring that person, that human, not trying to put them into a box. In order to capture the true character, humans must be viewed as a work of art. We're a complex collage of nuances, and to truly capture a human's essence, you need to approach it with an artistic eye. not unlike studying or observing a wild animal, which is precisely what humans are. The 5 gears of Mojo Reading allows one to look at other humans as wild animals and as works of art. Detached yet involved, holistic yet precise. Like any other form of art, reading people requires a certain level of self-mastery and discipline. Check out Ademus's Enlightenment Empire, Dismantling the MBTI for a good breakdown on what the pitfalls are when you're typing someone versus reading them. As the gears increase in level, they will require more competence and tacit ability in order to use. But the amount of information that will be gained will be that much greater. The early gears allow you to approach reading people more academically and mathematically, but an artistic approach will be required to be able to read as the gears increase in level. None of the gears are technically superior to any of the other gears. However, it will be desirable and beneficial for you to learn and master those higher gears because those will be needed as you get into other parts of your Mojo training. Each pod power gives off a distinct signal that is recognizable in humans in various signal strengths depending on its position in the psyche. With the pod power of Nai, there's a distinct signal of dissatisfaction, in a more profound and less surface understanding that stems from various factors. One of them is noting that others are not detaching, so they're not seeing the larger scope of perception, but nevertheless they're thinking and operating as if they do. And this is compounded by Nai's inability to demonstrate concretely the truth that others' constrained perception is not seeing. Another factor is that Nai's visionary drive to follow trails makes requests of the psyche that can seem really far-fetched and yet are presented as unrelenting and uncompromising quests and drives, and that will exacerbate that dissatisfaction. A third factor is that the loss of fidelity of the vision, once it's articulated by the apparatus itself, leads to a deep anger at its own performance. The distinct signal for Ni is buoyancy. Those with Ni give off the signal of buoyancy due to the optimism, enthusiasm, and abundance of mental energy that comes from the inexhaustible supply of ideas and possibilities. Ni resists being weighed down and is undaunted by the prospect of change. So its creative resourcefulness presents options that are previously unseen and makes what is heavy seem light, thus the buoyancy. With Vi, there's a distinct signal of concern, and that stems from a couple of factors. A constant worry that others or they themselves have forgotten previously recorded information leads to a constant and consistent call to remember. Vi keeps checking the memories, and the concern is alleviated when they do, but it never goes away because that call to remember comes back, and it's a drive, and it's always there and consistent. There's always something else that they or others may have forgotten, so again, that energy wells up again, and that call to remember comes in, that concern, and they go and check it. And so that's a continual process for Vi. Thus that distinct signal coming up. That distinct signal of concern also comes up because there's a worry of the potential for disinformation that stems from incorrect memories, and therefore regular checks are performed in order to ensure the fidelity of the historical information that is being stored by the Vi. With V, there's a distinct signal of amped. V, similarly to Ni, doesn't get starved because, in their case, everything is so stimulating. There are ample things in the environment through visceral and sensory information that they can interact with, and so with V, one has ample energy to do so, and thus they have that amped energy to them. The amped signal can manifest as alertness, a readiness to engage and experience the environment. One seems brimming with energy, which is distinct from the other 7 powers, and thus they perceive V as amped. With Jai, there's a distinct signal of poignancy, which stems from the pain of stepping away from harmony. There's a deep and emotional beauty to harmony and hope, and Jai is always being hit with those aspects of the world that are not harmonious, and that creates that poignancy to energy and feeling to well up and to be given off by the person who has Jai. The poignancy that comes up from Jai leads to the need to bridge that gulf and to make the sorrow go away. There's a great amount of inner energy when this acute anguish is felt, and compels one to do superhuman things to reestablish the harmony of the world or the situation, whatever is making that energy swell up in the first place. The distinct signal for Ji is that of caring. With that supreme sense of personal connection and social bonds, and having that warm communication to connect the tribe and set them in productive harmony, and to shepherd, that drive to shepherd that Ji users have, that makes an energy come up with them, a caring energy that they'll give off, because that's their overarching priority, is to connect with the tribe, is to shepherd, is to strengthen the social bonds. So the caring energy will radiate from Ji. Zai has an uninvested quality to its functionality, which gives it the distinct signal of unflappability. When Zai is impacted with information, it simply shakes off the information that's not logically relevant and only focuses on what logically matters. Zai also approaches the situation at hand in purely impersonal and dispassionate manner, and will resist making any unnecessary or undue reactions due to environmental or emotional or social stimulus. Thus, the unflappable energy from Zai. Z gives off the distinct signal of bracing. Z advances forward using a bracing language, seeking to attain maximum strength and impact in every decision. It approaches decision-making in a structured manner, beginning, middle, end, and defines the worth of a system or its components by its relative or absolute rank to other systems or their components. So at Z, you will see the bracing distinct signal. The conflagration of cues, as the name indicates, refers to the totality of the cues and energetic patterns that a person is giving off. So I'm going to use myself as an example to show you what a conflagration of cues would look like, what we're looking for. Here's the conflagration of cues that you'll be seeing with me and with other Jaini. You'll pick up on the distinct signal of poignancy with buoyancy, over concern with bracing. That deals with the distinct signals that we just talked about. Values warming and cooling. Unaware mouth or expression, that comes from Jai. Hooded eyes, that comes from being subjective. Discerner eyes, that comes from being lead discerner. Gatherer eyes, because have ni as our perception. Dancing eyes, wide, perk up and lift. Adaptive momentum, syncopated rhythm, natural contextualizing, altered concretizing. Right eye drifting with tilts and shrugs inside of the mouth. Left eye checking with tilts and shrugs inside of the mouth. The right eye is coming from the Jai, the drifting is the Jai, and the left eye checking is coming from the Vi. Cool articulating from the Z. Anvil jutting, also from Z. Natural yin gesturing, because I'm adaptive. Altered yang gesturing. Natural introverting, because I'm subjective. So with the drifts, the checks, the 1,000-yard stare, the channeling. The eyes closed, the refraining. And altered extroverting, the articulating, the animating, and gesturing, because again, I am subjective. The conflagration of physiological cues creates a distinctive pattern that's indicative of the specific Mojo configuration. Here are a couple of good ways to start applying what you've learned here with third gear and start honing your lens. This is an amplification augmentation experiment. So go to the virtual village that has all the different samples and pick 4 gender mojos that share the same source power. So for example, you could take 1 Naiji male, 1 Naiji female, 1 Naizi male, and 1 Naizi female. They all share the same source power of Nai, and start looking for that distinct signal that they'll all share because they do have that same source power of Nai. So they'll have that dissatisfaction, which I talked about. So start looking for that within those 4 gender mojos, and then pick maybe some other 4 gender mojos and go from there. You have that really powerful similarity that they share because they have the same source power. The next experiment is a compare and contrast. So again, go to the virtual village or any of the samples that I provided in the orientation episode or Nijin coach dropped in the Najas hunting episode, and look for 2 mojos that share the same tandem power, so that's the second power, but have a different source power, or the first one. So for example, you could look at 2 mojos, 2 Nez towers, so Zaini and Jaini, or 2 Jez hunters, like the Vaiji, 1 Vaiji and 1 Naiji, or 2 Nai fighters, a Zinai and a Jinai. And you'll see that even though they share that same tandem power, because they have a different source, they will have they'll have a difference there from having different distinct signals. That strongest signal that's coming off of that mojo is going to be different because of that different source power, even though they share the same tandem power and they have a lot of other similarities. That distinct signal will be clear. Good luck in your artistic enlightenment quest. Send in any questions that you have to podlair@yahoo.com and we'll be happy to answer them. And look for the next episode on Gear 4, Riffs. Till next time, Podlair pioneers.